in reviewing some of your tweets, there's a distinction that I picked up on, or becoming a reader versus reading, and then stacking your books, like the books that you've read next to your bedside. And so these are like, it seemed like very nuanced, intentional choices that you made to help reinforce some of these habits and to make them fun. So can you tell us a little bit about like your process for building new habits, or how you think about building new habits to help people get out of some of these states where they feel stuck in a rut or filling their time with things that suck?
I think the things that I've found to be really powerful is there's probably like the habits that you want to build, like you're not going to want to do them, right? Like this is something that everybody knows. Like I could throw out the cliche of like read Atomic Habits. Like that's a piece of advice that many people give. It's not necessarily interesting, at least in my opinion. The thing that's really interesting to me is like when you know that you have to do a certain set of habits, like just like really push yourself to do them, and then also try to absorb the mentality that your emotions are going to need to have very little to do with like what you actually do in your life. Like basically, I think there's like a lot of narratives where it's like, oh, you know, like we're kind of in this culture online where it's like like I don't know how else to put it. It's just a victim culture. It's like, you know, a lot of people online who talk about, oh, like that must have been really hard. I get why like you're disadvantaged and you couldn't do X, Y, and Z. And it's like ultimately, if you adopt that mentality, you're fucked. You're totally screwed, because like basically what you're saying is like there are cases where it's okay for me not to take ultimate responsibility over my own life. And I mean, the truth is that responsibility isn't something you take. It's like a state of being. Like you can't not be responsible. It is impossible. Down to the atomic level. Like the blood in your body moves based on the waves of the moon, like in the sky. Like you are responding to, you have the ability to respond at all points, and you will because you live in this system. And so it's really important that people create some mental rigidity. I think that's like the most important piece of information I could give to the most number of people listening to this that might be applicable. It's like when you're trying to build habits, you need to be mentally rigid. Like there needs to be a part of you that's like, no, I'm going to do this. I know it's going to suck. I'm doing this for my future self. And then you need to balance that with, okay, like if I said I was going to do it 5 days out of the week, but then I did it 4 days out of the week, look, I already did it 4 days. That's 4 more days than I was doing it over last week. Like let's focus on the positive and try to hit 5 this week. So there is like a part of it that's like push yourself forward by focusing on how much progress you've made. And then if you stop making as much progress, then get more mentally rigid. But first get mentally rigid. I think a lot of people are like really quote unquote burnt out. I don't know, like, I don't know how much I believe that in different spheres of online. I think we've been blaming the pandemic for far too long. It's like, when are you going to take responsibility of your life? If you want me to be like completely honest, and I haven't had zero casualties personally within the pandemic. So, you know, everybody can blame things in a different way, shape, or form. But I think you just have to take ultimate responsibility over your life, or you're always going to be miserable. And that's the first thing I'd say, because I think there's active narratives that try to go against that and try to make it okay to be emotionally flexible. And when you're trying to change yourself, you have to be emotionally rigid. You have to be able to say, no, I know this is a good direction that I need to go in. And my brain is going to be telling me not to do that. And I need to tell that part of my brain to F off. Like it's just not serving me anymore. And so that's really the best piece of advice I could give there, because other than that, yeah, like, you know, create like a place where you're tracking your habits to try to do like 1% more week over week, whatever. Like those are all the like obvious, boring things. The really hard thing is like, just do it. And when your emotions come in, you have to set up systems for you to basically remove your emotions. Like emotions are not a place where like progress happens, because progress happens from habits, and habits cannot be based. If your habits are based off your emotions, you're not going to make consistent enough and long enough progress to reap the benefits. And so it's also cliche advice. I don't really have good advice here, because I feel like the only advice is really boring and it's just like really hard. It's like, just got to do it, you know?